You're not bad with money. Your brain's just being hacked. You think you're choosing to spend. You're not. You're reacting to fear, to stress, to dopamine, to a system that's been designed to trigger those reactions and profit from them. Because every impulse buy, every "I deserved this," every "just this once" moment isn't random. It's predictable. It's engineered. And the more you understand how those triggers work, the less power they have over you. Think about the last time you spent money you didn't plan to. It probably didn't feel like a decision. It felt like relief. Maybe it was late at night after a hard day. Maybe it was first thing in the morning when your brain was still tired. Maybe it was during your lunch break when you were stressed and overwhelmed. Those moments, the tired ones, the lonely ones, the stressed ones, those are the most profitable moments in the modern economy. That's when your defenses are down. That's when the triggers work best. 3 real moments you might recognize. Monday, 11:42 p.m. You're exhausted. Scrolling in bed, you see a flash sale countdown. Ends in 0817. Your chest tightens. You don't need the thing. You need the feeling of not missing out. 2 taps later, the timer stops. And so does the anxiety. For now. Wednesday, 7:05 a.m. Alarm. Emails. Cortisol flooding your system before you're even fully awake. Then, a notification. Your order has shipped. A micro hit of certainty before the day starts. The package itself? Irrelevant. The predictability is the drug. Friday, 1:23 p.m. Work chaos. Deadlines. A colleague gets lunch delivered. You weren't hungry 5 minutes ago. Now you're treating yourself. But it isn't food you're ordering. It's relief with fries. Before we start, drop your state or city in the comments. Let's see where everyone's watching from, and how money stress feels where you live. Who's struggling with rent? Who's just trying to make it through another week without opening the credit card app? You're not alone in this. This is educational content, not financial or psychological advice. Mental health, addiction, and money behaviors vary significantly by individual. Always consult licensed professionals before making personal, financial, or mental health decisions. Let's start with what money actually is, not on paper, not in theory, but in your brain, in your nervous system, in the chemistry that's running through your body right now as you're listening to this. Money isn't just numbers, it's emotion, it's chemistry, it's dopamine, cortisol, and serotonin fighting for control every single time you open your banking app, or walk past a store, or see an ad, or get a notification about a sale. When you see something you want, a sale, a product, an experience being marketed to you, your brain releases dopamine. That's the neurotransmitter tied to reward and anticipation. And here's the key thing most people don't understand. It's not the purchase itself that gives you pleasure. It's not the thing you buy. It's the expectation of pleasure. The anticipation. The, "what if this makes me feel better?" The tiny hit of control when the world around you feels chaotic and overwhelming. That dopamine spike happens before you buy, not after. That's why the excitement fades so quickly after you get the thing. That's why you can buy something you really wanted and feel almost immediately disappointed or empty. But here's what happens in your brain when you repeat that cycle. When dopamine spikes, your brain stores a little memory trace, a shortcut between a feeling and an action. The more often you use that shortcut, the more times you buy something to feel better, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. It's literal wiring. Your brain builds a habit loop out of your pain. A circuit that says, feel bad? Buy something. Feel stressed? Buy something. Feel lonely? Buy something. How the loop cements itself. Cue. Craving. Click. Crash. Your brain tags the cue, a sound, an icon, a specific place, a time of day, to the relief that followed last time. Next time that cue appears, the craving arrives faster. The window for a rational choice shrinks by seconds each time you repeat the pattern. The good news? The same neuroplasticity works in reverse. New cue, new response, new memory. You won't willpower your way out of this. You'll retrain your way out, one interrupted impulse at a time. This is neuroplasticity in action, your brain physically changing its structure based on repeated behaviors. The pathways aren't permanent, but first you have to see them clearly. You have to understand that this isn't a character flaw. It's neurobiology responding to a designed environment. When you're stressed, anxious, or scared, when life feels overwhelming, when bills are piling up, when you're worried about the future, cortisol floods your body. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, the logical part that handles long-term thinking and rational decision-making and impulse control, starts to go offline. It literally becomes less active under stress. Blood flow redirects away from it. And the amygdala, the emotional, reactive, impulsive part of your brain that's designed to keep you alive in immediate danger, takes over. It pushes aside long-term planning and says, fix this feeling right now. That's your amygdala overriding your prefrontal cortex. Ancient survival wiring meeting modern temptation. That's when the screw-it moment happens. Logic disappears. Emotion takes control. You click, add to cart. You order the takeout even though you have food at home. You buy something you don't really need and can't really afford just to feel okay for 5 minutes. That's not weakness. That's design. That's your survival system misfiring in a world it wasn't built for. Your brain evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to deal with immediate physical threats, predators, starvation, injury, danger you could see and touch and run from. It evolved to make fast decisions that kept you alive in the moment. It didn't evolve for push notifications, for one-click payments, for 24-hour online shopping, for credit cards that let you spend money you don't have, for algorithms designed to show you exactly what you want at exactly the moment you're most vulnerable to wanting it. Your brain is running ancient software in a modern world. And that mismatch, that gap between how your brain works and how the economy works, is where the trap lives. But here's the thing. The companies you buy from understand your biology better than most people understand their own behavior. They have entire departments, teams of neuroscientists and psychologists and behavioral economists studying exactly how your brain responds to different triggers. And they use that knowledge deliberately, systematically, to keep you spending. But let's zoom out. Because this isn't just about personal psychology. This isn't just about your individual brain chemistry. This is industrial psychology. This is behavioral science weaponized at scale. Every major brand, every app, every retailer you interact with has a behavioral science team. Sometimes they call it user experience. Sometimes they call it growth hacking. Sometimes they call it conversion optimization. But what they're actually doing is testing your responses, testing your triggers, testing what makes you click, what makes you buy, what makes you come back. They test colors, they test words, they test timing, they test sounds. They track how long your thumb hovers over a button before you decide. They test which tone of voice in a "your order is confirmed" message gives you the strongest dopamine response and makes you most likely to order again. Here's a real example of how deep this goes. Casino designers discovered decades ago that certain sounds, specific frequencies, and rhythms trigger dopamine release and keep people playing longer. Those same sound patterns have been studied and adapted by e-commerce platforms. The cha-ching sound when you complete a purchase? The satisfying click when you add something to your cart? Those aren't accidents. Those are engineered dopamine triggers copied from gambling research. Streaming platforms and shopping apps delay payment confirmation by milliseconds, just long enough to sync with your brain's natural dopamine rhythm. They know that if the confirmation comes too fast, you don't get the full reward response. If it comes too slow, you get anxious. But if it comes at exactly the right moment, your brain gets the maximum dopamine hit and stores that positive association with the platform. There's no evil genius in a tower making these decisions. It's data scientists running A/B tests. It's dashboards showing conversion rates. It's tiny adjustments, each one only improving results by 0.5% or 1%. But multiplied across millions of users, billions of transactions, it becomes an economy of control. An architecture of manipulation so subtle you can't see it unless you're specifically looking for it. They know that red creates urgency, that blue creates trust, that certain words, exclusive, limited, members only, trigger specific emotional responses tied to status and scarcity. They know exactly how long to make you wait before showing you a discount code. They know that showing you items other people bought activates your social comparison instincts and makes you more likely to buy, even if you didn't want the item 5 minutes ago. The limited time offer isn't really about scarcity. It's about cortisol. It creates artificial stress. It makes your body panic, makes your brain think you're missing out on something important, something you might need. Your instinctive reaction is to act, to click, to buy, to end the discomfort of feeling like you're losing an opportunity. The "you deserve this" messaging you see everywhere? That's oxytocin manipulation. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone, the one that creates feelings of connection and belonging and self-worth. The system hijacks your social bonding instincts, the ones that evolved to create connection with other humans, and attaches those feelings to brands instead of people, to products instead of relationships. The buy now, pay later buttons that are everywhere now? That's executive function bypass. It separates the pleasure of getting something from the pain of paying for it. Your brain processes the reward immediately. Dopamine spike, anticipation satisfied, thing acquired. But the consequence, the payment, the debt, the financial impact, that gets postponed to a future version of you. A version that isn't here right now, making the decision. A version that will deal with it later when the emotional high is long gone. And they know you'll say yes. They know it statistically. Because they've tested these strategies on billions of people, billions of times, they have more data about how you respond to triggers than you have awareness of your own patterns. And here's the cruel part that makes this so much worse. Stress makes you easier to sell to. When your brain is under chronic financial stress, when you're barely holding it together, when you're worried about bills, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, your reward circuitry becomes hyperactive. Your impulse control weakens. Research in behavioral economics has found that people experiencing financial strain have significantly higher likelihood of making impulsive purchases when they're under emotional stress. Some studies show increases of 40% or more. Not because they're careless, not because they're stupid or irresponsible, but because their brains are literally wired, biologically, to seek relief from the constant stress. You're not buying stuff. Not really. You're buying dopamine. You're buying a momentary escape from a system that constantly makes you feel like you're behind, like you're failing, like you're not enough. Every purchase becomes a tiny rebellion against feeling powerless. A tiny moment of control when everything else feels out of control. A brief chemical relief from the anxiety that never fully goes away. Let's go deeper into the psychology, because this is where it gets dark. This is where you start to see that none of this is accidental. The financial system doesn't just profit from your stress, it actively creates it. It needs you stressed. It needs you anxious. Because calm, secure people don't spend impulsively. They don't reach for relief. They don't need products to feel okay. Credit card marketing uses what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. That's the same mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. They reward you randomly. Small cashback bonuses. Here, you've been pre-approved. Emails there. Temporary credit limit increases. Surprise points. Occasional perks. You never know exactly when the next reward will come. So your brain stays engaged, stays checking, stays hoping for the next hit. Meanwhile, the same companies, sometimes literally the same parent corporations, are funding the advertisements that trigger the stress and insecurity that drives your spending in the first place. A generation ago, advertising sold products: detergent, cars, appliances. You needed soap, they sold you soap. Today, advertising sells identity. It sells belonging. Yesterday, brands sold objects. Today, they sell selves. The offer isn't buy shoes, it's buy the version of you who belongs on that street. The carousel isn't showing inventory, it's showing identities priced in 4 interest-free payments. When community thins out, when connection becomes harder, consumption volunteers as a substitute. It works for a moment. It fractures later. Every algorithm is built to convince you that you're one purchase away from being enough. That consumption can fill the space where community used to live, where connection used to happen naturally, where your worth wasn't measured by what you owned. Your social media feed shows you the life you don't have, the vacations you can't afford, the homes and bodies and relationships and experiences that make you feel smaller, inadequate, behind. And then, right there, right under that image of the life you wish you had, there's the easy financing link, the buy now, pay later button, the you're pre-approved message, the solution to the problem they just created. They build both sides of the loop. Stress, spend, relief, regret, stress again. And each cycle keeps you more compliant, more predictable, more profitable. Because stressed people don't make long-term plans. They react. They cope. They survive. They get through the day, the week, the month. They don't have the mental bandwidth to question the system or organize their resistance or build something different. And survival mode, chronic survival mode, is exactly where money companies make their most reliable profits. You've felt it. The scroll through your feed at midnight when you can't sleep. The moment you tell yourself you'll just look, just browse, not buy anything. The small voice that says, "I've been good all week. I deserve this." And then the silence right after the package arrives, that strange anticlimax that feels like shame wrapped in cardboard. The emptiness that's somehow worse than the feeling you were trying to fix. Drop a yep in the comments if you've ever bought something just to feel okay for a minute, and then hated yourself for it an hour later. That's not just you. That's the chemical crash after the dopamine spike. That guilt you feel afterward, that shame, that's part of the business model too, because guilt doesn't make you stop spending. It actually keeps you coming back. The next purchase becomes the way to fix the shame from the last one. You buy something else to feel better about buying the first thing, and that's the trap. That's how the loop sustains itself indefinitely. But here's the good news, and this is where everything shifts. Once you see the trigger, it loses most of its power. The system depends on invisibility. It depends on you blaming yourself instead of understanding what's happening. It depends on you thinking, "I'm just bad with money," instead of, "I'm being targeted by sophisticated psychological manipulation." When you can name the trigger, when you can see the mechanism, the spell breaks. Not completely, not immediately, but enough. Enough to create space, enough to interrupt the pattern, enough to choose differently. So let's break the loop. Here's how. Step 1. Name the emotion before you spend. Pause for 3 seconds before every purchase, not to think about whether you can afford it, not to calculate the budget, just to feel, to check in with yourself. Ask, what emotion am I trying to fix right now? What feeling am I trying to change or escape or soothe? Is it boredom, fear, loneliness, stress, anger, inadequacy? The feeling that everyone else has their life together and you're falling behind? If the answer isn't, "I actually need this specific item for a specific purpose," then what you're buying probably isn't the thing. You're trying to buy a feeling. You're trying to buy relief from an emotion. And that's not wrong. That's human. But recognizing it, naming it clearly, changes everything. Because that 3-second pause reactivates your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain that stress and emotion shut down. It brings your logical mind back online just enough to have a choice instead of just a reaction. Picture yourself in a store, hand hovering over something you want, or online, cursor on the buy button. Take those 3 seconds. Feel your heartbeat. Notice your breathing. Feel the urge, but don't act on it yet. Just observe it. That pause, that tiny gap between impulse and action, that's where your power lives. It's the simplest psychological interruption you can use. 3 seconds. Name the feeling. That's it. Step 2. Separate the high from the habit. The intense feeling of, I need this right now. That urgent craving, that sense that you'll feel so much better if you just get this one thing. That feeling peaks and fades in about 90 seconds. That's how long a dopamine craving typically takes to peak and start subsiding if you don't act on it. If you can outlast that 90 seconds, if you can ride out that wave without acting, the intensity drops dramatically. The urgency fades, and often the desire disappears entirely. Here's what marketers know about that 90-second window. That's why they use countdown timers. That's why they show you only 2 left in stock messages. That's why they create flash sales that end in minutes. They're trying to force you to act within that dopamine spike before your rational brain comes back online, before the craving naturally fades. Try this. When you want to buy something that's not an immediate necessity, put it on a tomorrow list. Write it down. Put it in your notes app. Screenshot it. You're not saying no. You're not depriving yourself. You're just saying, not right now. I'll decide tomorrow. Then check again in 24 hours. If you still want it then, if you still think about it, if it still seems valuable and you can afford it without using credit, buy it guilt-free. With full permission. No shame. But here's what actually happens most of the time. The urge disappears. You forget about it. You realize you don't actually want it anymore. You see that it was the emotion wanting relief, not you wanting the thing. 4 ways to ride out the 90 seconds. Box breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. Repeat 6 times. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the part that calms you down. It literally changes your body chemistry in under 2 minutes. Cold splash. 20 to 30 seconds of cold water on your face or wrists. It interrupts the stress response physically. Your body has to shift resources to deal with the temperature change, which breaks the emotional spiral. Walk the block rule. 1 loop around your block or building without your phone. If you come back and still need the thing, then you can decide. But that physical movement, that change of environment, that's often enough to reset. Microjournal. 2 lines only. Feeling, and write whatever emotion is actually there. Then, if I buy this, what problem does it solve for the next 24 hours? 9 times out of 10, the urge dissolves before the ink dries. Because you've named it, you've made it conscious, and conscious urges lose most of their power. Step 3. Create a calm ritual that isn't financial. The system has trained you, trained all of us, to self-soothe with spending, to fix uncomfortable emotions by buying things, to regulate your nervous system through consumption. But your nervous system doesn't actually need money to calm down. It needs rhythm. It needs breath. It needs movement. It needs connection. It needs rest. These are biological needs that money can't actually meet, even though the economy has convinced you otherwise. Replace the spending trigger with something else that releases dopamine or serotonin naturally. Movement. Even just walking around your block. Sunlight on your face for 10 minutes. Journaling. Writing down the feeling instead of buying away from it. Cold water on your face or hands. Calling someone you trust and just talking. Walking without your phone, without a destination. Stretching. Deep breathing. 5 slow breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Lying down for 10 minutes with your eyes closed. These sound too simple to work. They sound like the kind of advice you'd roll your eyes at. But they work because they're what your nervous system actually needs. They address the real problem: dysregulation, overwhelm, the feeling of being unsafe in your own body, instead of just covering it up temporarily with a purchase that will create more stress later. This is about nervous system regulation, not willpower. Your body stores stress. Your body stores trauma. Your spending patterns are often your body's way of trying to feel safe when it doesn't feel safe. When you give your nervous system what it actually needs, when you address the root dysregulation instead of medicating the symptom with spending, the financial behaviors start to shift on their own. When you give it rhythm, breath, and safety signals, the compulsion to spend starts to lose its grip. Not immediately, not all at once, but gradually, over weeks and months, you'll notice the urge comes less often and feels less urgent. Drop one word in the comments, the calm ritual that actually works for you. Walk, breathe, call, stretch, whatever it is. Because someone else reading this needs to know what worked for you. Step 4. Audit your environment, not just your budget, because your environment is programming you. Every app notification, every exclusive deal email, every influencer unboxing something, every targeted ad, every people like you bought this suggestion, every email that says we miss you, or your cart is waiting, or last chance. These are cues, triggers, prompts designed by teams of behavioral scientists to activate your reward system and create desire where none existed 5 minutes ago. You're not weak for reacting to them. You're human for being exposed to thousands of engineered cues every single day. Cues specifically designed by experts to make you react, to bypass your rational mind, to hit your emotional triggers directly. De-trigger checklist. You can do this in 10 minutes. Unsubscribe from all promotional emails in bulk. Search unsubscribe in your inbox. Delete them all. You don't need another email telling you about a sale. Turn off push notifications for shopping apps, banking apps that suggest purchases, social media suggested for you features. Turn them all off. Remove saved credit cards from browsers and require CVV plus two-factor authentication for every purchase. Make it slightly harder. That friction creates mindfulness. Delete your 3 most tempting shopping apps for 30 days. Not forever. Just 30 days. Prove to yourself you can exist without them. Move credit cards out of easy reach. Keep only debit in your wallet for weekdays. If you have to go find the credit card, you have time to pause and ask yourself if you really need this. Redesign your home screen. Calendar, notes, weather. No shopping apps, no badges, no red dots. Nothing pulling your attention towards spending. Here's what the first week of this feels like. Withdrawal. Your brain will be looking for those dopamine hits it's used to getting from shopping apps and marketing emails. You'll feel bored more easily. You might feel anxious, like you're missing out on something important. That discomfort is real, but it's also temporary. It's your brain adjusting to the absence of constant stimulation. After about 2 weeks, something shifts. The quiet starts to feel like peace instead of deprivation. You stop thinking about purchases you're not making. Your mind has space for other things. You start noticing that you're less stressed about money, even if your income hasn't changed, because you're not constantly being triggered to want things. You don't need more willpower. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes throughout the day. You need fewer weapons pointed at your nervous system. You need to reduce the volume of triggers you're exposed to every single day. Step 5. Redefine what security actually means. Most people chase spending because on some level they think it'll make them feel safe. Safe from judgment, safe from scarcity, safe from the feeling of being left behind or missing out, safe from pain. The belief is, if I have this thing, if I look this way, if I own these items, then I'll finally feel secure. But real security isn't external. It's not in the things you own, or the life you can display, or the image you can project. Real security is internal predictability. It's nervous system stability. It's knowing, deep in your body, that you can handle what comes. Security isn't the mansion in the perfect neighborhood. Security is the quiet morning when your phone isn't buzzing with payment reminders, when you're not calculating whether you can afford groceries this week, when you're not dreading the next bill. Security is knowing you can cover next month's bills without panic. Knowing you can handle a $500 surprise expense without your world falling apart, without having to choose between fixing your car and eating properly. Knowing you don't need to check your bank balance 10 times a day because you have a buffer, a cushion, a margin between what you earn and what you spend. That's not luxury. That's not wealth. That's freedom. That's the difference between surviving and living. And every small step toward that stability, every purchase you don't make, every dollar you save, every trigger you resist, is a rebellion against the system that profits from your chaos, from your stress, from your feeling of never having enough. 7-day nervous system, money reset. If you want a structured way to start rewiring these patterns, try this. Day 1. Track only urges, not spending, just urges. Time, place, what you were feeling. No judgment, just data. You're learning your patterns. Day 2. Remove 5 digital triggers. Unsubscribe from 5 promotional emails. Delete 1 shopping app. Turn off 3 notifications. Remove autofill for 1 saved card. Pick 5. Do them. Day 3. Add a 10-minute calm ritual at your peak trigger time. If you always shop at night, that's when you do your ritual instead. Walk, breathe, journal, call someone. 10 minutes. Non-financial relief. Day 4. Start your tomorrow list. Every non-essential purchase goes on it. Review it once at the end of the day. See how many things you've already forgotten about. Day 5. Spend free block. 6 hours where you don't buy anything. Then, 1 pre-planned purchase you truly value. Something you decided on yesterday, not today. Learn the difference between reactive and intentional. Day 6. Build a tiny buffer. Auto transfer $10 or $25 if you can. Prove to yourself that safety is possible now, not just someday. Even small amounts change your nervous system's sense of security. Day 7. Write your if-then map. If I feel stressed at 9 p.m., then I walk instead of scroll. If I feel lonely on Sunday, then I call this person instead of shop. Put it where you usually buy. On your phone lock screen. On your desk, next to your laptop. Make your plan visible. Let's reframe the big picture here. Because the story you've been told about money, and the story you've probably been telling yourself, is incomplete and deliberately misleading. You're not lazy. You're not bad with money. You're not irresponsible or weak or broken or failing. You're living inside an economy that literally runs on attention, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. An economy that needs you stressed and distracted and impulsive to function properly, to hit its growth targets, to satisfy its investors. Every dollar you spend impulsively is data for them. Every click is feedback that gets fed into algorithms. Every reaction is monetized, analyzed, used to refine the triggers so they work even better next time. Your emotional responses, your behavioral patterns, your stress, and your relief, all of it is being tracked, measured, and optimized to extract more money from you more efficiently. But awareness, real awareness of how this works, breaks the loop. Because when you see the trigger clearly, when you understand the mechanism, the illusion disappears. And when the illusion disappears, the control shifts back to you. Not completely, not all at once, but enough. Enough to make different choices, enough to interrupt the pattern, enough to start building something different. One last frame before we end this. Picture your future kitchen table. No red notification badges, no urgent promotional emails, just a mug, sunlight, quiet. The urges still visit. They knock, They don't own the door. You feel them pass through and leave. That's not luck. That's training. That's you, choosing the next hour over the next hit. You are not your financial mistakes. You are not your shopping history. You are not the balance on your credit card or the impulse purchases you regret or the money you wish you'd saved. You're a human being trying to feel safe in a system that's been deliberately designed to make you feel unsafe, to keep you perpetually anxious, to convince you that security comes from the next purchase instead of from the space between purchases. You're a nervous system trying to calm down in an environment that profits from keeping you activated, from keeping your stress response engaged, from keeping you in a state where you're reactive instead of reflective. And that's not weakness. That's not failure. That's biology colliding with an economy that understands that biology better than you were ever taught to understand it yourself. But now you know the script. You can see the triggers, you can recognize the pattern, you can pause before reacting, and every pause is power. Every moment of awareness is a deposit toward your freedom. Every time you see the mechanism and choose differently, you're rewiring those neural pathways, building new circuits, creating new patterns. So drop a comment. What's your biggest money trigger? Is it stress? Boredom? Fear? Loneliness? The feeling of being behind? The comparison trap? What's the one type of purchase you always justify when life gets hard? What do you buy when you're trying to feel better, trying to feel safe, trying to feel enough? Because someone reading the comments right now is in the exact same place you are, thinking they're the only one, thinking they're broken, thinking they're failing, thinking everyone else has it figured out. And hearing your story, seeing that they're not alone, might be exactly what helps them stop blaming themselves and start understanding the system they're up against. If this video hit you, if it made you pause or breathe or look at your next purchase differently, or see your patterns with more compassion, hit subscribe. And share this with one person you know who checks their bank app more than they check in with how they're actually feeling. One person who's stressed about money and doesn't understand why they keep spending even though they know better. Next video: how to set up a friction-first wallet and phone setup, so the cheapest, healthiest choice becomes the easiest choice. Because willpower fails, design wins. Because the truth is, money isn't just math, it's emotion, it's chemistry. It's your nervous system trying to regulate itself in a world that's constantly dysregulating it, that's constantly pushing your buttons, that's constantly exploiting your biology for profit. And the more we understand that, the more we talk about it openly, the more we share our patterns and our triggers and our struggles, the less the system can use it against us. The less power shame has. The less isolation keeps us compliant. You don't need to spend to feel okay. You need to understand why you want to. That's how you break the loop. That's how you get free. Not through perfect control, not through never wanting anything, but through awareness, through seeing the trigger before it controls you, through pausing long enough to choose. You're not broken. The system is. And awareness, true understanding of how this works, of how your brain works, of how the triggers work, is the first real deposit toward your freedom.